What's up, YouTube? This is Gilbert or Lala Lakers with Dizzy Gaming, here to bring you a video. As you can tell by the title, it's going to be how TSM solved Gnar. So the first thing I want to point out is that if you have not been following the start of the Season 5 competitive league scene, Gnar is probably considered the best top laner. He is in his own tier, I would say. Worldwide, whether it's the LCK, the LPL, EU, NA, they all play him and they all play him very well. He seems to be very successful in the top lane, no matter the matchup. Although I have been seeing a little bit of Cassiopeia wrecking the laning phase against him, that's become somewhat popular recently. But once it starts breaking out into team fights, he just brings so much more than Cassiopeia outside of a perfect Cassiopeia ult, which, as we all know, is extremely hard to hit. That being said, Gnar brings a lot to the table, and I think it's very important for people to know how to play against him. So the first thing I want to talk about, although TSM didn't really do this, you can start playing against Gnar in Champion Select. Now, of course, if you ban him, there you go. You don't have to worry about him. But there are, in my opinion, some more priority bans this patch, or the patch that's live, and I don't think that banning him is always ideal. There might be a more priority ban that you need to get out of there. And if you play against Gnar correctly, it can work out in the long run. So I definitely think that one way to deal with Gnar, though, if you have the option at Champion Select, is keeping away the Jarvan. Now, if that's banning Jarvan, or if that's taking him for your side, or I guess keeping him away from the enemy team another way, I don't really know which other ways there would be, but that is definitely something that should be done. Jarvan Gnar tends to be the reason why Gnar is so successful right now, is because you're not always going to have that terrain unless to knock people back in your mega-gnar form. Unless there's a Jarvan, then you will always have that terrain. It is always going to be there with his ultimate, and you don't even have to be inside the ultimate for Gnar to knock people against the wall. They can even be outside the Jarvan ultimate, and it'll still follow through and stun them. So I do think that keeping Jarvan away from a Gnar team is very, very important, and kind of like the first step that you can take to dealing with the Gnar. So the second one, obviously referring to the terrain again, keep away from the walls. One thing that I noticed that TSM did fantastic was that most of their fights were coming in the mid lane. They were mostly out in the open. And if you notice, Balls on Gnar, he was trying to look for the walls. He was trying to jump in, flash if he had to, and he just wasn't able to. Jano played fantastic by Lustboy, kind of helped with that, but nonetheless, there were, even if he were to make the great play and get off the ultimate, get in there into his back line and get the ultimate off, he wasn't going to knock him into the wall, which would then mean they're not going to be stunned. So that cuts off a lot of the effectiveness of his ultimate just by simply picking the spots to fight. So I guess a way you can think about it is just be conscious of where your surroundings on Summoner's Rift. You know, when you're playing against a Rumble, you don't want to line up in a straight alleyway, I guess you could say, of Summoners. You don't want to go like alongside the river entrances. That's probably the best place to get Rumble, or to get Rumbled ultied. So it's kind of that kind of thinking that you have to take, that kind of approach, but that can make a huge difference. If you can not get ulted into a wall, you are most likely going to have an opportunity to win that team fight. Alright, the next one I want to get to is another thing that I saw TSM do as well in that game, is they flanked first. So if you notice, there was one section in the game, I don't happen to know the exact point of the game, but C9 was heading down the mid lane. They were starting to push the mid lane. It looked like they were about to siege maybe their first inhibitor turret. I don't know if it was their first, but it looked like they were trying to siege an inhibitor turret. Some of inhibitor turret on blue side, I'm sorry. And then TSM, some of TSM were in their red jungle on blue side, and they also had a few members coming up behind C9. So they kind of trapped them in to where they were pushing and got the flank off. They got behind the carries, and what that did was that forced balls to ult one or two single people that were the threat immediately to the carries. So he had to use his ult as a peel method on one or two people. Obviously, that is not what you want Gnar for. You want Gnar to go in there, try to get as many people as possible knocked up against the wall, have them stunned, and get off the full combo so they get annihilated. Usually that's the case. But not only did TSM find a team fight in the center, in the middle lane, like I had touched on just a second ago, but they also took the initiative and dove right back onto, or got better positioning and got right onto the carry, so Gnar had to use his ultimate early, and therefore it wasn't very useful in that fight. So before I end this video, one last thing I want to talk about that TSM did in that game against Gnar. Pretty simple. As soon as they saw the bar starting to fill up on Gnar, it's information. Use it. Just like Shyvana. It's the same approach to that. Once you see her ultimate bar is full, she has an ultimate. You're aware of it. So with Gnar though, unlike Shyvana, there's actually a whole animation that he has to go through to transform. So you have plenty of warning to see that Gnar is transforming. So when TSM was not in the position to be ready for these Gnar fights, let's say they weren't in mid lane, let's say they weren't able to get a flank off, then yeah, just get away. They disengaged immediately. As soon as they saw Gnar's rage meter starting to blink and him beginning to transform, they just ran away. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's completely, it seemed like the right decision to make, because he was almost ineffective the entire game on one of the most effective champions of the meta at the moment. So I definitely want to give a lot of kudos to TSM. I thought they played this game fantastic. Their team comp, they played really well. And I definitely look forward to some more good play from them, and I definitely think that this is possibly the way we're going to start seeing teams play against Gnar, since he is so prevalent in this meta. I'm looking forward to it, because I think it's going to be a really good battle to see, you know, these good Gnar players trying to find a way to now counter their counter. I guess you could say their counter playstyle. So thanks you guys for watching. Remember to like the video, comment in the section below if you have to say anything, and yeah, I also do have a couple more videos planned, something pertaining to more of that game as well. I definitely really enjoyed it. So if you want, I'll go ahead and put the link in the description to the game as well from LOL Event VODs. So you can check out exactly what I mean when I'm talking about how TSM played, in case you missed it. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching, and remember to stay competitive.